workflows using Nintex Mobile. So one thing I wanted to do today is thank you for joining and also show you how you can ask questions today. Since we have a relatively good-sized group here, I'm going to try to go through the PowerPoint presentation as quick as possible just to set some context and let you understand what this product is capable of doing. But one of the things is there is the question window down in your lower right. If you take a look at your panel on your right, you can ask questions. I'm the only one running this webinar today, so I'm going to be checking back and forth with the questions as we go. One thing I do want to point out is down at the bottom of the screen here, that is my email, alexv@netwoven.com. I want to make sure that you have this so that if I don't answer any questions or you come up with other questions related to possibly like something like pricing or building out a proof of concept for your organization, you can let me know and I can help you with that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started here and introduce you to who NetWoven is and why are you talking to NetWoven. So NetWoven is a solution provider, and we are the #1 Nintex partner on the West Coast. So one of the things we do is we work with a lot of different companies, as you can see down below, and a lot of the companies, the employees that I work with did come from Microsoft as well. So I did put in my time there, as I'll show you in a minute. But one thing here is, like I said, we are our #1 partner. We deal with everything SharePoint, CRM, Salesforce.com. We do have a lot of offerings around technology and solution consulting and in staffing as well. So something to be aware of, that we are a relatively good-sized company and we can satisfy a lot of needs that most individuals have. Now, one thing I wanted to point out here is who am I? I am a dedicated Nintex solution architect. So that is all I do. When it comes down to creating anything in SharePoint, anything outside of SharePoint that is Nintex related, I'm someone that you can turn to. As you can see, I did spend a lot of time working for Microsoft and other companies in the Silicon Valley here. So one thing I want you to take away at the bottom is that we do have exceptional Nintex customer references. So as you start to evaluate this product and you think about moving forward, I can put you in contact with other customers that have had great success with this product. So one thing I wanted to cover today is I wanted to go over how an information worker spends their week. So what you're looking at the bottom, if you take a difference in the view of yellow versus blue here, we're talking personal productivity in blue, and also in the yellowish color, we're looking at collaboration. And so you may not be aware of this, but a lot of your information workers spend over 40 hours a week, and this is kind of how it breaks down after looking at surveys of how people spend their week. This is basically what they do, and one of the things we want to be able to do is bring in this timelines as far as making it people more productive and making it so they don't have to spend so much time. So in the situation like creating documents, Nintex has the document generator action that can actually help you create templates, fill out a form, and that form will actually create a workflow that will generate a document from that. So you can collect data from different disparate data sources and actually create different documents. Being able to do searches across SharePoint, being able to do forms. There's just a lot of different things that we can do when you take a look at what Nintex offers to really bring in these timelines to make everyone more productive, and moreover, keeping you from losing time and money, because that's basically what it comes down to when an information worker is having to spend a lot of time doing things over and over and over again when you can automate that process. And these are kind of the everyday processes that take a lot of time. And this kind of sets on the heels of the IT Pro. The IT Pro is usually the bottleneck for this, and what we'd like to do is eliminate it with this tool that can actually make things a lot easier and doesn't require you to write code. So that's something that you should take away from this. And again, I think the biggest thing here is in the upper left of really reducing administrative costs, but along with that comes a lot of other things as far as risk when you look at HR onboarding or something like that, of being really making sure that you're doing the right thing and making sure that no one slips through the cracks as far as not signing a document or not doing a background check. There's just a lot of different ways that workflow can ensure that you have this kind of compliance and that things are accurate, and everything that they talk about here as far as expedition of a process and boosting customer satisfaction or employee satisfaction. So what I'm going to build today for you, we're going to start from scratch building an automated leave request with NIM Tech. So this is going to require us building a custom form and also a custom workflow. And if you take a look at this workflow, the user, an employee submits a request to take time off. Once that happens, it goes over here to the right to the manager. The manager will either reject it, as you see on the left-hand side, and will send a notification back to the employee to let them know why it was rejected, or if it's approved, we'll actually go down and send a notification. But another thing we're going to do is we're going to update a central team calendar for the manager, so the manager of these employees knows when these people are going to take vacations and what they're out for. And the last part on the right-hand side, I'll talk to this, but we're not going to set this up today, is being able to actually connect to SAP or ADP. These are simple things to do as well, but we're going to focus on pretty much this upper half up here and go through this whole process. Now, one of the reasons that you see this branch right here called set reminders and alerts and enable lazy approval, I'll talk to those as we're doing that, but the whole idea here is we want to make sure that your managers can actually approve different requests that come through using email. So they can just respond either yes, I approve, or no, I disapprove, or okay, yeah, any kind of term they want to be able to use. Up here at the top, I say automate a leave request. This is basically any request. So when you take a look at the pattern that we're going to design here inside the product, you'll be seeing that everything follows the same pattern, whether it happens to be a leave request, expense reporting, requisitions, multi-level approvals. This is just one level approval. I'll kind of talk to how to do multiple level approvals, and this is something that I train a lot of people on. How do you do the more complex workflows where you might have a situation where it's 3 or 4 levels of approvals, and things can go back and forth between requiring more information and requiring more input from a user. So we'll take a look at that. One thing I want to point out here is Nintex is not a developer's tool. We're not writing code. We're basically using 4 components of the Nintex platform. Today we're going to talk to 3 of those. I'll be demonstrating all 3 of those, and you'll be able to, on the left, you'll be able to see some of the things we're doing, and I'll touch on Nintex Live. The whole idea here is I want you to understand what this platform is capable of. So let's go ahead and walk through these different pieces, and then we'll get right into the demonstration of the product. So let me go ahead and move to the next slide here. The first part is developing the workflows. We do that inside the browser. It's not a tool like InfoPath where you need to install a product. We basically do everything through the browser. Again, this is a no-code solution. We have the ability to see where we are with the workflows at an individual workflow level, at a list item level, or we can even see it at a much higher level, so what's going on within the enterprise, and get different types of reports that are going back. All this is built on top of SharePoint workflow as well, and that's what makes this so stable and makes it so that we don't have to write code, is that we can actually batch a lot of the different SharePoint functionality into a graphical environment, and that's what makes this product so unique and powerful. Like I said, we can automate almost any request. This is basically the pattern. So in a leave request, at the top, a workflow starts and is initiated based on the settings that you set. So when we kick off a workflow is started by a couple things. Either a list item was created inside of SharePoint, a list item was modified in SharePoint, or someone went in and said, I want to start this workflow manually. So in this situation, we would auto start based on a newly item created. That would start an email sent to the person that had sent in the request. Then we go and assign a task to the manager, and the manager can approve or reject. This is a very common pattern of about 80%, 80+% of the kinds of things you'll do when you're automating any type of request. So, the requests over here, you can see that the workflow ends after 6 separate steps here, and it makes it very easy to be able to drag and drop from the left-hand side. You have all the different action items that you can drag and create on this surface and pull off some pretty incredible and significant workflows without writing any code. So that's one way of doing the workflows. This is a simplistic one that starts from the top, assigns a task to someone to approve or reject, but we also have the ability to get more complex as well. So when we start going in here, notice that the workflow that I'm showing you here is almost identical. What I wanted to point out here is the ability to do something called lazy approval. I talked about that in the previous slide. So the whole idea here is we don't have to be chained to our desk. I can have my mobile device if I'm a manager or someone that's doing the approval. I don't need access to SharePoint. All I do as a designer is click on a checkbox to say enable lazy approval. Whenever that manager or the person approving this process will be sent an email, and then they can actually respond in the email, and it'll take on from there. This is one of the #1 features that managers love about this product, is having the lazy approval feature. So one other thing I was talking about was doing multiple level approvals. So in this situation, we have a requisition, and if anyone's interested, I have this workflow that we supply templates to you free for a bunch of different ones that we've worked on, so you're not starting from scratch. So basically someone submits a requisition, it goes through a C-level approval to either approve or deny it. This can be done with lazy approval. Then it goes to the finance department. Finance department will look at it, the requisition, and see if it looks okay, approve or deny it. Then it moves to the next stage where we actually have 2 individuals here that are going to approve, but we're going to do this based on a value of whether the requisition is greater than $10,000 or not. It'll go to one individual versus another, and then at the end we actually have the approval, and we send notifications out. Now, what is something like this, which could be what you'd perceive as being a more complex type of workflow with 3 levels of approval? What that looks like inside of this product is something called a state machine. So here's a workflow designer. Again, we have all the actions on the left-hand side that we can use. But what I want you to notice is we have something that's very unique to Nintex workflow, is something called a state machine. A state machine allows you to translate these workflow diagrams, like I was showing you here on the screen, into multiple branches. So you'll see that we have the initial submit from the user, we do a bunch of actions, then we move to C-level approval, we ask for approval here, then we move to finance approval, and we eventually go to that final approval that had the condition of if we're greater than $10,000, either yes or no, and we assign these tasks, and eventually we're done and we send out notifications. So again, what you're looking at on the screen is something called the state machine. It makes it very simple to be able to do multi-level or multi-stage approvals. This is something that's normally very hard to do in any other product, where in this product, by using something called a state machine, we're able to do it very simply by dragging and dropping what action should happen for each branch or stage that we're in. So the sky's kind of the limit of what you can do here. And again, this is very unique to the product. If you need me to go deeper into this in a private session, you can email me and I can talk to this to let you know how you do stuff like this. The next part of it is developing forms. So again, we're developing forms, but the uniqueness of this product is around being able to create forms for any device. So you think about creating a SharePoint form, that's one thing we can do, but we can also create forms for tablet and mobile as well. This is all part of your inclusive license, so there's nothing extra to buy, which is really unique about this product, is being able to create multiple applications on different target devices, and being able to have those devices be mobile. We can push them out also to the cloud, so we can push our forms out as anonymous or authenticated forms to the internet. So think about that. I have a form that I want a partner, a business partner, to be able to fill out, but I want to do it in a secure way. I have that ability to push that form outside the firewall as a URL link without giving that person access to our internal site, and they're not included in Active Directory. Or I can push it out anonymously. Let's say I want to do a survey. I can create a survey form. I can push it out as a link and email it to a bunch of customers, have them give me their survey. They fill out that form. That data comes all the way back into my SharePoint list without them having to be authenticated. All they need to do is have the link, and we can gather that information. So some pretty cool things here. We can cover every mobile device that's out there as far as creating forms. I'm going to give you a demonstration of that as well today. We'll take a look at creating a mobile application. So this is what the form designer looks like. What you probably notice is that we have all these different columns in a SharePoint list that show up on the form by default. So one thing that Nintex is really unique in doing is creating a default layout so that you're not starting from scratch. Most other products that you use, they'll give you a blank canvas. You have no idea where to start. What they do here with Nintex is they actually lay out everything for you. You can move stuff around, or you can take stuff off that doesn't relate to the form or you don't want to show on the form. But the whole idea is, on the left-hand side, we have all different kind of form controls that we can put in there. Repeating sections is very common for doing expense reports or travel requests. We have a people chooser, so I can choose from Active Directory who the manager should be for approval, different things like that. So you can see we have a bunch of different controls. We have a bunch of list columns that are all the list columns. One thing that's unique as well, if you're familiar with SharePoint, is sometimes you're developing a solution and you need an extra column with information. So all you need to do is go up here and click on Create Column. That'll bring up and automatically insert a SharePoint list item for you without having to go to SharePoint. So that makes it pretty unique in that. You can see at the top where my laser pointer is, we do have all the mobile devices we can target as well. I'll show you that. And we can import, export different forms, so we can share forms. This is one of the ways that I was talking about, that I can give you some samples and some templates for things that you might want to create, and you can just import those and have a starting point without starting from scratch. Okay. Nintex Mobile, so if you're on your mobile device right now, have it nearby, you could go to your store and search for Nintex Mobile. So let me tell you what Nintex Mobile is. Nintex Mobile is an application that is installed on any mobile device. It's a free application, so if you go to your store, regardless of what device you're on, you install this application, and what this application does is you put in your username and password into this application, and any forms that you have access to inside of SharePoint that have been published as a mobile form will show up on your mobile device. So think expense reports, help tickets, doing mobile surveys where you need to go. I don't know your scenario with your company, but you might have the situation where you have to go out in the field and do stuff, and you need to do a survey. You want to have the ability to have these forms on your mobile device and do it live. We can also stay productive even when we're not connected. So even if we don't have a mobile cellular service, we can still fill out the form. So I can be on a plane, I can be on my cell phone, on my mobile phone and fill out my expense report, and then once I hit the ground, I can hit submit when I have a signal. Some pretty cool things that you can do here with Nintex Mobile. I do want to say when you do mobile development, normally creating mobile applications costs anywhere between $50,000 to $100,000 entry level. This is all included with Nintex, and all you have to do is download this client application onto the device and push your form out as a mobile form, and it will automatically show up on the screen, and I'll be showing that to you today. This is what the screen looks like for the enterprise version. So you can see on the left-hand side we have our mobile phone, where we can look at down at the bottom all the tasks that have been assigned to you, the forms you have, any drafts that you filled out while you were disconnected or you didn't submit, what you have in your outbox. On the right-hand side is a tablet view. So the tablet view basically breaks it up into the menu items being on the left-hand side, but you can see they're showing all the tasks here. If I wanted to show all the forms I've had access to, I would have that as well. And lastly here, before we get into the demonstration, is having Nintex Live. So Nintex Live is a service that's included with this that gives you the ability to connect to a bunch of software as a service offerings to be able to push and pull information. So if you look on the right-hand side, this is just the tip of the iceberg as far as things that you can connect to. But the whole idea here is you're not going to just be connecting to SharePoint and stuff that's inside your firewall. You might be connecting outside the firewall and have to push and pull information. So if someone drops a file into Dropbox or Box and you have to pull that in, you might modify it and have to do some kind of approval process. So we can basically do this. So Nintex Live is this basic gateway for being able to do a lot of these different things as far as external communication without you having to do anything within your firewall or basically setting up any kind of topography that deals with the security of this. This is all built into the product as well. So let me go ahead and get into this demonstration, and let's go ahead and take a look at what I wanted to do. So what I want to do for you today is, if we take a look at this leave request, I'm going to build out this leave request that I talked about earlier. Here's your SharePoint list, and if I were to add a new item, this is basically what you get default out of the box. You don't get any customization, you don't get any dynamic rules that happen here. So what we want to do is we basically want to take that and make modifications. So what I want to show you is we have the different titles here. So we have title, leave type, start date, and end date. These are all the things that we kind of added in here. Some of the other ones are by default, but what I wanted to show you is this is basically where you go in and create your columns for SharePoint, and that's where you basically get your columns here: title, leave type, start date, end date, description. So let's go ahead and start with creating a form. Once you've installed this product, you'll end up with an icon up here called Nintex Forms, and I want you to notice it does a default layout for me. So here I am in the product, I'm in the browser, and this is just a title that I could eliminate if I want to and skin it any way you want to. It's up to you how you want to be able to display these forms, but this is a default form. Here's the title. I can go in here and make modifications, so I can move stuff around. I can go in here and say, I want to move end date over here. I might want to move, any ways I want to move things around, I can do that. Luckily, I have Control-Z here, so if I want to undo anything, I can do it and get back to my state that I was in. So here's some cool things that we can do to just kind of show you the power. If I wanted to come in here and create another column, again, I told you we can come in here without going back into SharePoint and actually create columns for, if I wanted to create something else that was related to this process. But this is for the leave request process that I'm doing right now. All I want to basically do is make some modifications here. Notice that we get attachments as well, so that we can have expense reports in a situation with expense reports. I might want to have attachments so I can take a photo with my phone of my receipts and attach it to an expense report. I'm not going to do that, so we're not going to use attachments here. I'll just delete that. And we're going to take a look at moving stuff up. And another thing I want to do is I want to see if we can do something dynamic. I only want a description if the leave type is other. Otherwise, I don't want to show this information. So what you can do is you can do something called a rule. And on the right-hand rule, I'm going to have a formatting rule that's going to say I want to hide this control if there's a certain condition. So let's take a look at creating a dynamic condition. I'm going to say if the leave type does not equal other, then I want to hide this control. So let's take a look and go into the Nintex previewer. And I want to preview this and make sure that it's doing the correct thing as far as that rule that I'm using. So notice I have this preview mode. No data will be submitted. This gives me the ability to play with this. I can input information. I can see my leave type. This was a choice control that I set up in the SharePoint column. And so if I set it to other, I want you to notice that I can come down here and dynamically have that set up. So I'm only required to put in a description if it's something of other, and then I can save. So I can basically see that that rule's working. Once I'm happy with my form, I can actually come up here and I can publish this form. And so I publish that form and then it becomes available. One thing I wanted to point out here as well is I talked about Nintex Live. What Nintex Live will do for me as well is I can go in here and say publish this to Nintex Live. I want to shorten URL and I possibly want to have either anonymous access or I want to have someone outside the firewall that can actually have access. And notice down at the bottom here, I can do a wildcard. So if I want everyone from another company to be able to access this form, I can do that. I'm just going to make anonymous access so you can kind of see that that this works here. And we'll go in here and I'm going to say save. And let me just show you what anonymous access basically does for us. When we publish this, I'm republishing this, and what we're going to see is that now this form can be published outside the firewall. So in a second here, it'll be done publishing, and I'll be able to actually go in there and access this form from outside of my firewall and gain access to it. And it's probably taking a second here because it's accessing Nintex Live, but it's going to confirm here. Hang on one second. Normally it doesn't take this long, so let me republish real quick. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask me now while we're kind of waiting for this. So normally it would not take this long. I don't know with my business. Here we go. Let me go ahead and publish. That took normally a long time. Normally it doesn't take that long. So let me show you this. I'm gonna in a new window. Here's that publishing to Nintex Live I was just talking about. So if I open this URL in a new window, basically what you're going to see here is a form that's published outside the firewall. So I can put in a title, and just so we know this, I'm going to say outside the firewall. The leave type I want to take is something other, my other time off, and we'll just leave the dates there as a current date. So if I say save, I've actually submitted this from outside of the firewall. So again, the URL is not pointing, it's pointing outside of our internal intranet. Also, when you take a look at this form, now that I close and bring up the new form, what I want you to notice is I can come up here and I can go in here, and here's the actual form. So any information I'm putting there, I'm going to put in a bunch of X's just for the brevity of time here. We'll make this a floating holiday and we'll say save. So now you're going to see this down here. what happened to the one that was submitted outside the firewall? They usually take 2 to 3 minutes to actually show up, because remember, that's coming from outside the firewall. So you're going to see outside the firewall show up here in a minute or so. So what I want to do now is I want to kind of jump, now that we're done with the form, I kind of want to jump to how do we do the actual workflow associated with that. So what we do is we can actually go, let me bring this up. Let's go ahead and let me hit refresh at this list. Let me show you how we create a workflow. So we actually go to workflow settings and we create a workflow with Nintex workflow. We're going to create a blank workflow. Now the green is the start and the red is the end of the workflow. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to come in here and tell it, first off, how do we want this workflow to start? What is going to initiate this workflow? So I go into workflow settings and I'm going to say I don't want this to start manually. I only want it to start when items are created. So notice you have different ways of starting workflows. You can start manually. You can start when an item's created. You can start the workflow when an item is modified. So you can have multiple workflows, one that works on newly created items and other workflows that only work when something's modified. You can do different things like that. There is one other way to start a workflow, and that's by setting it to be scheduled. So you can create site workflows that are scheduled to run, once every hour, once every 20 minutes, to actually do something, to go to a list and query and look up stuff. I'm just going to do it when an item's created. So now this green will start whenever we add a new item. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to come up here on the left-hand side. Here are my different action items over on the left-hand side. I'm going to send the manager a message saying that someone has submitted time off and you need to deal with it. So let's go ahead and see what we configure here when we assign it. First thing I want to do is I'm going to assign this to me, because I don't want my real manager thinking I'm going on vacation. So I'm going to play both roles here. I'm putting in my name here, but you have the ability to come in here and basically get information from Active Directory. So you have, in the different lookups, you can get information based on initiator's manager. I could have put initiator in there because I'm the initiator. We can do internal searches against Active Directory. There's a bunch of different ways to be able to do that. But basically, it's smart enough to know who you are, and it'll actually resolve the name for you. Now remember, I told you we have the ability to do lazy approval. If I want lazy approval, all I do is I hit this checkbox here. Now I can respond. The person that's being responded to can respond with the actual email by saying yes or no. So we're going to go ahead and go through this, and here's a task description. We're going to say time off reporting. That'll be the name of the task. But one thing I want you to notice here is in this task, this flexi task is super powerful. The task notification that's going to go to that person, you can actually set what they're going to get as far as a message goes. So response required for, and we're going to say, and you'll see that I have all the different item properties here for leave type. And I can set that in there, and I can put a dash in there, leave type for a certain individual. So I can come up there and I can actually say the initiator's display name. So this is a dynamic string that you're going to see at the top here. Let me go ahead and actually let me redo that. I didn't do that. So it's going to say response required for, and then notice I put the cursor at the end. Now I can come back in there and do initiator's display name, and then I can put a dash. I'll put a dash in there, and the item property is going to be the type of leave they're taking. So we're going to take leave type. So now that I've done that, oh God, it's not doing it right, but I'm going to leave that for now, but just understand that you can do a dynamic string in there. For some reason it's not typing in there. And you'll notice down at the bottom we get a custom email down here as well. So in regarding the item down here, again, we can do a dynamic item. Another thing too is that when we have to remind people, so when we assign a task to a manager, we want to remind them how many reminders do we want. Maybe we want 3 reminders in the next few days, so we can do that as well. And the biggest question comes from people about escalation. What happens if someone doesn't respond? We can delegate the task to another individual, or we can auto-complete the task and we can say, you know what, the outcome is we're rejecting this because no one responded in a certain amount of time. So you can escalate this, and we can also have the task form. So Nintex allows you to actually go and modify the task form. I'm going to leave the task form in the default mode, so it's going to show us all the information that we have around the list item properties, and we're going to be able to approve or reject that. So I'm just going to save that, and once I save that, now the task form has been saved as well. So we can go in there, and we've made all these different modifications, and now I can actually go in there and say save. So we're going to send this to the manager, who I'm going to play that role. Now what I want to do is I want to send an email to the person that actually we're going to approve for. So I'm going to go ahead and say configure. Now this is how easy it is to send an email. Again, I'm going to play both roles because I don't want my manager to think that I'm doing anything here. So this is a vacation or time off request. Has been approved. And I'll say have a good time off. Hopefully they're not sick, but you get the idea that we can put in any message we want to. So we're basically, we could set it to high priority as well. So basically setting it to that individual, and I'm going to save that. The next thing we're going to do, a little more complexity, is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go ahead and create an item in a shared list like I was showing you. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to configure, and we're going to say where do we want to create the item. So I can create items in different lists, but I want to create it in a leave request calendar, and the content type is an event, right? So what I'm going to do is that we're going to set this to a value. We can come up here and I can actually say time off for, and let's go ahead and set this and make this unique. Hang on, let me do this in here, and I'll kind of show you the value of being able to do dynamic things. So I can say time off for, we're going to take the initiator's display name, and then the type of request they're taking is going to be leave type. And so this is what I was trying to do before, was kind of show you we can do dynamic things. So the title for the calendar item is going to say the name and the leave type. The start value, we want to use the value that they put in there. So we're going to come in here and say the start value is going to be the start date, and then the end value is going to be the end date. That's how long they're going to take off. So there's end date. And we can also add something else. Let's say that they're taking some kind of other. I want to put a description in there as well. So we come down here, and I can actually go in here and do the list lookup and say I want to put whatever comments they had put in the description. And I'm going to say save to that. So what we've basically done is we said that once the manager approves, we're going to send a notification to let that person know that their time off has been approved. But in the team calendar, we're actually going to go in there and update the team calendar. I can copy this item here just to make things simple over to this side under rejection. The only thing we need to do is configure this and say time off has been rejected. Sorry. I'll make that simple. You can think of anything that you'd put in there, but that's basically what we're doing. So now I go ahead and publish this, and this will take a second. We're going to call it time off. Time off workflow, and I'll say submit. So it's going to publish this workflow, and now if everything's working correctly, when we actually run this, we should see all the messages start to come through. So let me go ahead and we'll go ahead and take a look at that and watch this once this is done publishing. So it's been published. Now what we can do is we can go to leave request. Let's go ahead and add a new item in here. I'm going to say Alex's time off. The leave type is going to be other. Let's go ahead and take a significant amount of time off. Maybe we'll go to something like June. I'm going to take a really long sabbatical and say long time off and say save. Now remember, that workflow is going to work. Oh, someone else got in there and actually did this by using the URL, but you could see we actually did outside the firewall. So now what's going to happen is what we should see is we're going to see a workflow message come in a minute. So here it is coming in right here. So a task has been assigned to you regarding this item. So when I go in there, notice that lazy approvals down here is allowed. But here I can go in here and I can go actually and take a look at that task item. So what I want you to see is now that form that we created for the task, now I'm the manager. So I can go in there and say approve, you know, have a good time. And you can see this is Alex's time off, leave type was other, description was long time off. Yes, I'm approving that. So I say okay to that. And now what we should do is, me being the employee, I should be able to see that this workflow is completed. So here's the workflow that I've completed. And now what's going to happen is I get that message that says, have a good time off. And you can see the time off has been approved. So we went full circle there. And you know, this would even work outside the firewall or whatever we end up doing. So some pretty cool things we can do. Also, I talked about looking at the workflow history. I can come up here and I talked about the governance of this, and notice everything in green is the path that we took. So after the manager approved, we can go and see that a notification was sent. We can see what time it was sent, and we can also see what time we put that in the calendar. Let's take a look at the leave request calendar. Here's my leave request calendar that I created the item with, and if we go in there and take a look, here's a description. I need a long time off. I could have put a location if I wanted to, but now here we have our team calendar with all that information. Now think about this. I created this workflow in probably under 30 minutes. Once you understand how to use this product, this is the speed at which you can do these kinds of things and create these workflows to be able to do stuff like this. And this one's a pretty simple one, but can have tremendous value across your organization to really help you understand how you can automate all these processes that bog a lot of people down. Now, one thing I wanted to jump into here, bring this up here, is kind of looking at how people are using this product across the board for being able to do different things here. So there was a question came in, and I'm going to take this question real quick. So how does security work on these task forms? Like when Alex's manager is emailed, is that form only open for him or her to approve? Or, let me read the rest. If someone's forwarded that email, can anyone open it? No, so if the email is forwarded, you're not going to be able to do the response. So what you want to basically do is a delegation in that. Actually, you know what? I have to think about that one, because since it is going to the individual, you might be able to do a response, but the problem is is the response from is not going to be a response from. So now that I think about it, no, that won't work. You won't be able to do it. What you would be able to do is you would be able to delegate it. So if we have a delegation set up, you could delegate it to someone else. They would get that notification, and the process would start from the point of them needing to actually get a lazy approval and that whole thing. So that's how that would basically work, because the reply to won't be the same reply to. So looking at the automation of business processes across all the different departments, I just covered one minute one, right? This, what you're looking at is when you look at the different departments that you're dealing with, is how Nintex is being used within our current customer base. So think of the thousands of people that are using Nintex right now. These are the top 5 within each individual department that you see. So this was based on a survey done with a lot of Nintex customers. One thing I'll also point out here is that when you purchase Nintex, this is something exclusive to NetWoven. We actually give you a lot of different templates for you to start with. So regardless of whether you go onto Office 365, SharePoint Online, or whether you do it in SharePoint on-premise 2010, 2013, or 2016, we have a bunch of different templates from stuff that's been built that you can use as a starting point. So you can either use it as a reference to understand how we did something like a DocuSign document. How did you do that digital signature? You can also take a look at different ways to be able to do a lot of these different pieces of functionality, so you can enhance them, or you can just use them as reference. So this is something that we offer. Nintex, obviously, it is the #1 product right now for doing forms and workflow. Essentially, since InfoPath is sunsetting, and the fact that you're not having to write any code, the fact that we can separate code from actual forms, something that InfoPath can't do, and this is a way more advanced way of doing this, of separating the user interface from the actual forms. If you take a look at all the different customers just from a Nintex perspective, worldwide this product's being used in a bunch of different organizations. So if there's some line of business that you're interested in, if there's some kind of proof of concept that you need to see, because a lot of things I didn't touch on, like being able to do template document generation, being able to configure and talk to different back-end systems as well. These are things that if you want to contact me, I can go into a deeper drill down of that capability. So one thing I wanted to point out here again is please take my email down, alexv@netwoven.com. I'll be sending you this slide deck. I'll be sending everyone the slide deck so that you have it for your reference. But also I want to inform you that if you need to have me answer any questions in great detail around some business process that you're trying to solve within your organization, feel free to reach out to me. I'll give you my contact information when I send out this slide deck, and we can schedule a meeting. Now, one of the great things about Nintex is they do offer you a free 30-day trial. So a lot of times what I do is I help customers get on that 30-day trial and use it within your organization and find out whether you're going to have the kind of adoption and what people think. So I can help you do those kind of things without it really costing you any kind of significant amount of money. My investment in time is hoping that you'll see the value in this product and move forward with it. And this is something that will help you with installation and also prescriptive guidance around how do you move forward with this product and be the most successful you can. So with that, I'm going to leave the line open here for any questions that you want to type in there. But other than that, if you don't have any questions, I thank you for your time, and I will send you this slide deck by the end of today. Okay? Thank you very much.